Okay guys, so we are on the range with the Mustang Armament rifle. Now, as you've heard from some other YouTubers, this is considered the best rifle company you have never heard of. And we're gonna put it to the test today and see how she stacks up. Now, what I can say initially is this is a pretty heavy, like stout rifle, and I mean that in a pretty good way. Like, it feels like incredibly solid. There's absolutely no frame movement in this, and it actually has some cable management kind of built into the top rail, which is absolutely fantastic if you want to run these with certain lights or IR devices or both. Since this actually is an 11.5-inch barrel but a mid-length gas system, this should be pretty smooth. So let's see how the first couple of rounds go. Now, I don't know if it shows up on camera, but this does not really recoil a whole lot. And if it does, it feels like it's straight back. That is probably some degree caused by the JP Silent Capture buffer spring that we have in here, but it feels pretty good. The trigger is the Geisley 3G, and that feels fantastic. You can run this super, super fast. Yeah, this is gonna be a fun test. So here is the real question. Is Mustang Armament the best AR company you have never heard of? And so to do that, I think the first thing to do is overall to talk about how this thing shot. I was very impressed. I think that this being a company I had never heard of before until I saw those reviews and saw some of the just virality around PewView and Honest Outlaw giving some glowing reviews of this, was that I didn't really have any preconceived notions of the company itself. So I went into this purely blind and unbiased. You can do it, but it's definitely at times a bit harder to be unbiased when you know you're doing some reviews or things on a company that you already know you like. So it was really cool and unique to get to actually do a pretty thorough review with something that I had absolutely no expectations in one direction or another with. And so with that said, this was not sent to me by Mustang. This was something that we acquired ourselves and are now doing the review on. And for this review, I, in totality, shot about 1,500 rounds for this review, which we will talk about, but it was very, very soft. It definitely is a very, very well-built rifle. I cannot tell you guys how just incredibly well built and solid this thing feels. It is genuinely up there with some of the best sort of known brands in the industry. And now I think the most important thing will be to discuss the fit and finish and the overall build spec of this particular pistol so we can talk about my pros and cons. So we have an SB Tactical brace with a JP Silent Capture buffer spring system in here. We have a Raptor charging handle. We have a Driven Arms grip, a Next Level Armament safety selector, as well as takedown pins. We've got a PWS bolt release bolt patch, a Geisley 3G trigger, the Emissary Development angled foregrip, Streamlight ProTac with the pressure pad, and last but not least, at least on this particular one, I have a Huxworks Flow TI. Now, this one did actually come with the Exigent Defense Fireteam 556, which in most of this review, I did shoot on it, but I just have thrown a few different cans on here just to see how the rifle behaves. Now, a couple things to note before we get into just some of the overall features and how it shot for me. Something that I would like to note is that it has cable management on the rail, which I think is fantastic. Not enough companies do this. If you're running any lights with cables or IR devices and any switching with that, it's just a massive, massive benefit to have in some way a bit of built-in cable management. This also is outfitted with the EOTech on a Midwest Industries riser. So I've got a great sight picture. It's a really, really good height, as well as you've got the magnifier just for any long range shooting. This particular model was very interesting to me for a couple of reasons. And the first being that when I went to take this build down initially, it had some of the tightest fitting takedown pins I've ever experienced in my life. I actually had to hammer both of these out with a punch. And even once I got the takedown pins fully removed and taken out, the upper and lower were still so tightly fit together that still was a bit of a struggle for me to separate these two, which is honestly something I love. The more you take all these things down and put them back together, it'll wear in just a little bit and become pretty easy. But I think that's just a testament to how just tightly Mustang is fitting these uppers and lowers together, as well as on this rail, it has a built-in tab from the upper that keeps this super rigid and super locked in so it can't shift or torque in any particular direction. And with all of that just robust build quality, I will say this is a fairly hefty rifle, which does lend itself to this being a really soft shooter, but it's just something to point out that compared to other builds in this category, it's definitely a little on the heftier side. It also includes a spiral fluted barrel with a mid-length gas system, which I don't think you see enough in the 11.5 and 12.5 inch barrel space. And on this particular model, we are running an 11.5 inch. So it just the whole build, I guess, the specs of this lends itself to being a soft shooter. Okay, so what are my major pros with this? Number one has to be, as I have said, the overall build quality and just the sturdiness and robustness of just this whole build. Upper and lower receiver frame fit is just superb, and you've got some built-in cable management, which I think is absolutely fantastic. They are also using, generally speaking, pretty premium parts for everything. It's not one of those things where they're sourcing really cheap parts to put in this. They're pretty much trying to find as good of a part as they can for the particular use case. Another big pro for me is this magazine release. It is sprung incredibly well, and it's actually curved and serrated, so it's super, super comfortable to actually kind of actuate and drop mags from. You also have this really very large, almost thumb-sized forward assist, and you have a really huge PWS bolt catch and bolt release. Obviously, the 3G trigger is a really, really good option for a lot of rifles, even ones that you're not going to be running competitions for. I really like the way these feel, the way they break, and if you notice in a lot of the footage that we got for this, I'm running this incredibly fast, and this thing just wanted to go fast, and a ton of that I lend to just how fantastic this Geisley trigger is. I do also like the rail covers and the angled grip. I think that is a fantastic touch, and I would say my biggest overall pro is going to be that this is how this entire pistol comes built. And I'll say right off the bat, that is not going to be for everyone. I think that if you have been shooting for a really, really long time and are ultra particular about what it is you like shooting and how you like to configure your builds, then this may not suit you. It could if this is how you like your sort of builds to look. But I think for a lot of people initially getting into this, as well as people who are big shooters but just don't really have the time to explore the massive ecosystem of all the parts involved in this, whether it's the risers and what height for your optic, whether it is the switching for your lights, as we talked about in our light review for weapon lights. The Streamlight obviously comes with its own pressure pad, but if you want to go Surefire or Mod Light, then you have to worry about specific tail caps and specific switches, and those have to be the exact same types to work together. And so it can just be overwhelming and can just be a lot if you aren't particularly versed in those categories. So I think that it is a massive, massive benefit to have a company that is sort of outfitting these and kitting these completely ready to go out of the box. The optic is sighted in from the factory, relatively speaking, since I know that depending on the ammo you run, that your point of impact will shift just a little bit. But this is how this actually comes. You could swap out muzzle devices, have some cans come with it. You could even swap out some of these parts if you wanted to from them before it gets to you. So I think that's just a huge, huge add for somebody who doesn't want to be the person doing it themselves and having to rely on their own expertise and build or assembly capabilities, and or those who just really don't know what they want to put on a build, and this kind of just solves that problem for them. So with that being said, there are a few cons. Some of these are just personal, and some of them I think others would have a problem with. This is not a big overall con, but just for me, I prefer the A5 Voltor system just as a buffer system in my builds. So I would personally prefer to see that in this setup, which I'm sure that is something that they could do, but it's just something worth noting. The JP silent capture is fantastic. I just have grown to really enjoy the recoil impulse of the much longer spring and longer buffer. The other thing is going to be that this safety selector, although incredibly tactile, just because I have larger hands, and I think this comes into it with the grip as well, I end up riding, when the gun is in safe, it's not that bad, but when I actually have turned this down to fire, you can see that that gets in the way of my finger, and that sort of started just creating a bit of a hot spot. So I think what I would prefer is either most of my guns have single-sided safeties or just a much thinner ambi safety. So I think that would solve that for me. That's not going to be something that bothers everybody. Just for me, it was a little bit cumbersome or troublesome that I was having to kind of feel that as I was shooting through a ton of rounds. I think the other thing as well is this grip. It looks fantastic. The sort of lasering is awesome. It's just not crazy aggressive. And again, with much larger hands, this particular grip felt a little bit thin for me. Some of the other ones that I have felt use a very different grip that's a lot just wider, and that one felt fantastic. And grips for me are not something that I'm going to hold a rifle or a pistol to just because it is so easy for me to swap those out. I think the other con for me, which again is a personal preference, is that when it comes built, it has this sort of thumb sort of stop or ledge right on the front of it. And with just the way I hold these builds on the rail, and especially because I'm planning to actuate a light or I'm prepared to actuate a light, this was kind of getting in my way and bumping. If that's a way that you like to ride a rail, and you want to have that, I'm sure it would be fantastic. It just wasn't for me, so I took it off, so not a big deal. The last thing I will say that is just something to note is that at about the 400 round mark, the PWS bolt catch bolt release actually broke in half. Now that was all internally, so the rifle completely still functioned. It just wouldn't lock the bolt to the rear. And the only reason I bring this up is because, one, bolt catches and bolt releases from almost every company that I can think of, even the nicest AR companies, are using cast or some type of MIM'd material for their bolt catch bolt release. And so this easily could have just been a bad casting. It could have just been heat treated incorrectly. There's a million little things that could go wrong on a cast part. And so I'm not going to hold that against Mustang, because when I let them know that I had this issue and did not mention initially that I was reviewing this or anything like that, the owner personally called me, chatted with me for probably 15 or 20 minutes, and then overnighted me a new PWS bolt catch bolt release. So it's a quality part. I think I just had a bit of a fluke with that, because I know PWS very well and know them to be a high-end just manufacturer of parts. And so those were all the little quirks. I thought that the magazine release was really nice, well beveled, just to make mag changes a lot easier. And honestly, with doing this all day and kitting rifles and pistols and taking things off, once you do it enough, it becomes a little bit of a task trying to take things off, unscrew things, screw things back on, torquing them down to spec. So the fact that this comes entirely built this way or built to a configuration that I can choose is a big, big value add. And it's not something I think I've seen much of anywhere else in the firearms industry whatsoever. So, is Mustang Armament the best AR company that you have never heard of? If it's in that category, absolutely. These are incredibly well-built and soft shooting builds, and just the build quality is up there with absolutely anything else that I could find in the high tier category. So I would say yes, it's definitely something that if you are looking to outfit or just have from the factory a build that's already kitted out, ready for you to go, then this is probably one of your best options. You can even throw IR lights and IR devices on from Mustang as well. I have seen that. This was a super fun review. I am so glad that I did enjoy shooting this, and we'll hopefully get to shoot a lot more of these here in the future. And as always, if you liked this video and like the content that we are putting out, subscribe to the channel, like, and if you are so bold, comment, even if it's just to make fun of me in the comments. I fully support it. And follow us on all the other socials just so you know when we drop videos and you see all the other cool and crazy stuff that we release. Join us next time because I think that our next review is going to be pretty awesome. And as always, we'll see you on the range.